Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud. Today we're going to be doing a little Aries season Q&A session. So if you have astrology questions, if you have technique questions, if you have questions about your chart, if you have questions about what's going on in the collective and you can make it relevant with the astrology, put it in the chat. Put a little question in the chat and we'll just spend some time together breaking things down. And yeah, I hope that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon out there. I'm going to welcome a few of my friends here before we dive in. Let's see, Sergey is here. Sergey is asking, how complicated of questions should we ask? Is this something that involves several progressed aspects, plus an outer planet transit aspect firing off within a 2-week period? Too complex? I don't know if there's any question that's necessarily too complex. As long as we have the right information and details, we can try to parse it out. So let's see. Rachel Fletcher is here. Says hello from Roanoke, Virginia. Nice to see you, Rachel. Hope everything's going well your way, my friend. Rachel and I have been reading the Silmarillion. It's been exciting. I've been going through some of the Silmarillion intro, I don't know, chapters, I guess, and it's been very epic and very exciting. So hope that you're doing well, friend. Rachel says, I've been rereading Margaret George's beautiful book, Helen of Troy, and been meditating on whether the mythological Helen might have been an Aries. Ooh, that's juicy. Certainly possible. Certainly possible. I think one thing I've noticed, you know, the sun, it brings sort of there's an attractiveness to the sun, and the sun being exalted in Aries. Aries is a sexy sign. So I Helen of Troy being like the people that, the woman that launched 1,000 ships. I mean, it's certainly possible. Certainly possible. Sergey's got some details that we're going to come back to that, Sergey. I've got a few announcements first, and then I'll come back and I'll try to unpack all that for you. Okay, sound good? All right. So yeah, if you have questions today, put them in the chat. If you have comments, if you have things that you want to work through astrologically or just, life-wise, put it in the chat, and we'll do our best to spend some time together and figure it all out. A couple announcements before we dive into all that, okay? Have a website, Spencer Michaud Astrology, or SpencerMichaud.com, excuse me, where you can find all of the Spencer Michaud Astrology offerings. All sorts of cool readings up there. You can reach out for a natal transit reading. You can reach out for a tutoring session. You can reach out to ask one specific question. I incorporate the tarot and the fixed stars and the decans into my readings. Books are open right now. So if you're interested in getting some life advice, I'd be happy to work with you. So check out the book now button over at SpencerMichaud.com. I also have a store on SpencerMichaud.com that has a number of webinars, including the decan webinars that I refer to quite a bit on the channel here, and also a series that I have with my partner, Tanya Andrews of Third Coast Mojo, where we did a Dignity and Devotion series where we broke down the 7 traditional planets, talked about them in their different dignities and abilities, and then talked about how to craft a magical and devotional practice around that and how to mitigate and remediate challenging placements through astrological magic. Really great series. Highly recommend it. You can find that on the store button. And I have some webinars that connect astrology with the tarot. You can find that over there as well. Great way to support the channel, by the way, and to learn some cool things about astrology, the decans, tarot, magic, etc. You can find my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews, at Third Coast Mojo on Etsy. She's also on Instagram and TikTok as well, if you'd like to follow her there. But she's got some pretty cool stuff for the spring here. We're in the midst of tax season, and I think as I'm recording this, Tanya's doing some taxes right now, but she's doing it with the assistance of Mercury in Virgo, Mercury exalted, which is great for organizing facts, figures, numbers, etc. It's called Hermes Harvest. It's a really great boost for this period of time, especially with Mercury in Pisces right now, which is in its stability. It is a wonderful product that can help you with things of that nature. She also has all sorts of cool offerings there. Mars and Capricorn, Iron Teeth, Mars in its exaltation, really good for blasting through any obstacles that you might have in your path, biting through all of those challenging tasks that you have to do, that you might not want to do, but you kind of have to do. Venus in Libra, Serene Queen is a great one for staying centered with a beautiful domicile Venus there. That Venus is also conjoining the fixed star Spica in that election. So all sorts of cool stuff there that can keep you centered and your nervous system on point in times where we might be a little frazzled. And then there's a Venus in Libra Glamour Magic soap, which is a beautiful product as well. And if you are struggling with the law or with taxes and you want to avoid being audited or something like that, the Law Keep Away Conjure formula with Mercury and Virgo is also a great one as well. So check her out, Third Coast Mojo. She is quite the wizard at making all of these products. They're beautifully done, and it's a great way to support her work as well. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, the Spencer Michaud Astrology newsletter, where you get updates on not only when I'm going live, but Third Coast Mojo products, and also class offerings and new reading offerings. There's a song of the week. I had a spicy one this week for those of you who open the newsletter. And it's a great way to stay up to date with everything. You can also support the channel by purchasing a super chat today while I'm live on YouTube, or going to buymeacoffee.com and becoming a patron there as well. A great way to keep us doing this work. We're all going through a little bit of tough times lately, and your support is really appreciated. It really does help keep the lights on here, and even just a few bucks, really, it does add up over time. So thank you for those of you who are able to do so today. Okay, so those are our announcements. Let's go back to our chat here. Noble Aquarius is here. It says, I love Pluto. I am an Aquarius. Pluto is conjunct my Mercury and conjunct my Sun in a week and a half or less. Pluto sextiling rising sign. I love Pluto. Well, today we've got a Venus-Pluto square. So we've got Venus kind of running right into Pluto today. We can talk about that a little bit. Pluto has some advantages to it. My experiences of Pluto have been intense. I guess that would be what I would call it. But what it can do is it can unplug blockages. It can reveal things that have been repressed or things that have been hidden, like erupting from underground, so that we can deal with it and that we can either change or transmute it or to release it. I think so. It has definitely a specific goal and purpose. So but some challenges with it as well. It's not always a fun planet, but definitely one with purpose. Devin is here. Selene's Gateway says, good afternoon. Spencer, nice to see you. Devin, hope everything's going well your way, my friend. Okay, so if you've got questions, stick them in the chat. If you could do me a favor, put question in all caps, that would make it easier for me to see. But yeah, don't hold back. If you have technique questions, you have questions about your chart, I'd be happy to answer anything and everything today. So Sergey, let's see. I'm going to come back to Sergey's question because he had kind of a first one here. It says, my progressed angles will be switching signs within 2 weeks of each other. Ascendant into Libra, MC into Cancer, also exact last hit of Uranus opposition, also exact progressed Mars conjoining Uranus. Okay, so let's see if, Sergey says, something that involves several progressed aspects in an outer planet transit firing off within a 2-week period. All right, Sergey. So, I mean, this is interesting, right? When we have progressed charts, a progressed chart is basically when your chart, we're moving the chart forward based on a certain set amount of time that is related to, I guess there's different ways to progress a chart, but the way that I normally see it done is you're progressing the chart sort of like, it could be a year for a day, could be a few minutes for let's see, progressing chart a few minutes for a certain set period of time. But what it does is it slowly moves the chart, or like your birth chart, around, and you will see things that will happen when your angles change, when planets come in contact with your birth chart. And in this case, what Sergey is going through is the switching of angles all within a short period of time. Now, the ascendant often talks about what we are, what we appear to be, or what we are aspiring to be. It is the self, right? It is also the body. So if Sergey's progressed ascendant is moving into Libra, it's progressing from Virgo. So Sergey might have been experiencing a sort of a Virgo consciousness, right, where he was presenting through Virgo themes. Maybe he was someone who is working very hard on his craft, maybe in a technical field, or just someone who might be not as social, but like working on the things that are important to them. When you have a progressed ascendant moving into Libra, that could mean more of a relationship type of focus with your personal life, where you might start to feel more social. You might start to feel like you want to go out and mingle, or see things from someone else's perspective. You might be ready to share that which you have been working on with the world. So there's something like that that could be coming into being as well. The midheaven moving from Gemini into Cancer. Again, the midheaven is what we're known for, like our reputation, what we show to the world. It's not necessarily just the self. It is more about what we do out in the world. They call it praxis. So when you could also contextualize that as like, some people call it like a career point in the chart. That's not quite as fully accurate. There are many things that talk about career in the chart, but the midheaven is sort of what people know us for, what we're known for. Not necessarily a personality, but like our works out in the world. So Sergey might be shifting over from a Gemini to a Cancer midheaven. What he's known for in the world may start changing from maybe being a communicator, or someone who works in tech or something like that, or someone who is a teacher, someone of that nature, someone who may be splitting their attention in multiple directions in his public life. And he may be moving more towards maybe starting a family, or maybe doing things that are working with children, or working with in a more of a caretaking type of position. So this to me sounds like a shift from working very hard at some technical craft, or some kind of doing that with not only with your personality, but what you do out in the world, and then starting to work in a more of a relationship-based manner with your own personality, but also what you're known for out in the world, where your sensitivity, your intuition is more useful in those jobs, rather than just your physical or mental acumen, right? So that could be a big shift moving up here. Sergey also says exact last hit of Uranus opposition, also exact progressed Mars conjoining Uranus. So Sergey is probably about similar age to me. I'm going through the last, kind of gasp of a Uranus opposition. Uranus opposition, of course, Uranus is in Taurus right now. So it is opposing our Scorpio Uranuses. Uranus opposition usually happens in the 40s or so, the age of the midlife crisis, if you will. So really, I think if we think about Uranus in the third 10-degree section of Scorpio, we have the Seven of Cups card related to that, right? So if we really look at what we're dealing with here, the decans are always associated with a specific kind of tarot card energy, and that helps us to understand what it might be asking of us. So Uranus is in Sergey's natal chart, Seven of Cups energy, also in my own. So I've experienced this kind of thing in my life. One of the things that we are trying to do with Uranus here is strip down illusion that may cause us to hold on to old forms past their ability to give us vitality. That is one of the main themes in Scorpio 3. We may have some genius behind that too. We may have an ability to create a glamour for something that has already passed, I guess. Okay, so Sergey's giving me some important information here. He says, I guess I should have given the degree of Uranus. Natal is 0 degrees Sagittarius, so 8 of Wands. A good contextual update, okay? So, so I take that back, and then let's kind of look at what we're going to have going on here. Very close though, right? 0 degrees, it's right on the edge. So we'll shift gears here for a second, and we'll get the 8 of Wands and the 8 of Swords out, because that gives us a little bit of a different energy. If you are going through your Uranus opposition with Scorpio and Taurus, you may be trying to fix some things that have fallen into disrepair, and releasing any illusions that you might have without trying to become, I guess, godlike. I guess that this is one of the challenges with Uranus. Uranus. This is something I've been learning from reading Liz Green's The Art of Stealing Fire, which is an excellent book. Oftentimes what Uranus will do is it will try to innovate in a way that it is very idealistic. And it is trying to bring something divine down to this very mundane world. What can happen with that is that power is not easily managed or controlled. And it can sometimes get out of, it can take on a life of its own, like Frankenstein's monster, right? So one of the things that I think is a cautionary tale with Uranus is, yes, it can break up old patterns. It can release us from old narratives and stories and patterns, but we also need to be careful about putting too much energy into it to the point where we lose control of that, right? It can be very disruptive. I look at those outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. My experience of them has been somewhat of a malefic experience. And if you study traditional astrology, the malefic planets are ones that sometimes can cause some suffering, sometimes can cause some real challenges, Mars and Saturn in particular, as the malefics in the traditional system. They tend to be more transpersonal planets, ones that have larger effects on society, not necessarily just personal effects. But that Uranus, Robert Schmidt, who is one of the founders of Project Hindsight, who uncovered a lot of the old manuscripts from ancient Greek and translated them and helped bring us the astrology that we practice here. He talked a lot about Uranus as a transcendental sun, like something where we're trying to find purpose through it as well. So coming back to Sergey's question, Sergey he has clarified that he has Uranus in Sagittarius 1. So the first 10-degree section of Sagittarius. And that has a syncretization with the 8 of Wands. That decan is related to speed. It is a Mercury-ruled decan in a Jupiter-ruled sign. So the delivery of messages, the delivery of what we perceive as our truth, it can also be related to the sharing of enthusiasms. There's a spirit in that decan. Every decan has a daimon or a spirit that is, we gather from this fragmentary text from ancient Hellenistic times called the 36 heirs of the zodiac. And in Sagittarius 1, that spirit is called Loimos. Loimos was a god of plagues, a god of, the spreading of disease. So if you think about how disease spreads and we shift it to sharing of our beliefs, we're trying to share a belief. Now, there's also warnings in that decan about becoming a host for other people's beliefs, for other people's very powerful enthusiasms. So you might have some really great ideas, Sergey, with this Uranus and Sagittarius around how to share something that you're passionate about, right? How do you get people on board with your vision? If you, let's say Sergey has spent much of his last however many years with a Virgo ascendant, Gemini midheaven, which maybe that's his natal position, or maybe that's already a progressed position. I'm guessing it's probably a natal position, but you can clarify, Sergey. Maybe spend a lot of his life learning skills, learning how things work, taking things apart, putting things back together. And maybe this is something that now he's trying to understand how to share his insights and say, hey, this is what I figured out. This is what I have discovered about the universe. Now, you just have to be careful with that, because it's very easy to feel like we have the truth, the market on the truth cornered, that we have a capital T truth, where Uranus and Gemini is going to show us that there are lots of lowercase t truths. There's lots of relative truths. There's multiple realities happening at the same time. The one truth that we think we know could get shattered in an instant. That could be part of the Uranus opposition, is what you thought was true, what your beliefs were based around, could be just blown up by a Uranus lightning bolt, right? And a lightning bolt of awareness that shakes you out of some kind of old pattern of belief. Now, beliefs come to us in a number of different ways, right? So Sergey's clarifying they were progressed. I'm naturally a Leo rising 29 degrees and Taurus culminating 19 degrees. Yeah, Sergey, you and I have a lot in common with that, right? I'm a 21 Leo rising and a 13-degree Taurus culminating midheaven. So I think I might be going through this as well. Like maybe we're speaking a shared language here. Let's see what we've got here. I wonder. Now I'm curious. Let's see. So one moment while I look at the subsidiary chart here. Yeah. So since you have a Leo rising that is further along, you're gonna transition into these different rising signs sooner. I've only progressed to a 26-degree Virgo rising at this point, so you're further along. The midheaven, I'm still at 26 Gemini, not quite to Cancer, but I think this is interesting though, because you and I will both go through this. You're going to have to tell me what happens in the next few weeks, Sergey. You're going to have to follow up with this because this is coming for me also in, I don't know, maybe a few years, like not quite. Let's see. I'm going to go through a similar thing in 2030. So when I'm 50. But yeah, I think more of a relationship type based thing, more of an intuitive, nurturing career, maybe even one that's more private. If I'm looking at this in the context of Leo rising, I have a feeling that there might be a career that is much more behind the scenes that doesn't necessarily is not necessarily at the forefront, right? Where we don't necessarily feel like we need to be visible in the same way. I can feel that coming for me on some level. Not that I would maybe stop doing the work that I'm doing, but there's a large part of me as a Leo rising that doesn't want to be visible all the time, that would love to lean into my 12th house sun and Mercury and just kind of, I don't know, live in a monastery or something like that. It's kind of the energy with it. Other people I've seen with midheavens that have progressed or are just actually in the 12th house, a lot of them are artists. A lot of them are ones that are just doing art in their studios and things of that nature. And I will admit myself, Sergey, that I'm an artist. I'm a dormant artist right now. My art has been put a lot. It's been put into astrology. It's been put in. This is also, they call it the art of astrology. But the music, the drawing, the painting, some of that has kind of taken a little bit of a secondary role since I started doing this career. And maybe I'll start returning to that when these angles progress. And maybe you will too. Maybe there's some kind of behind the scenes work or an artistic thing that you want to do. Maybe you'll get more involved with your community, with the ascendant progressing into your third house. This Uranus thing, though, what I will say about this is we have, here is the other card for Uranus and Gemini that's coming. And I think this is really interesting to talk about Uranus and Gemini because that progression is going to happen pretty soon. Uranus is moving into Gemini on April the 25th. So coming up in a few weeks, right? Uranus and Gemini 1, we see the Eight of Swords, where we are looking at a figure that is blindfolded and bound, but there's little tributaries, like little streams or rivers at their feet. So there is a feeling in this decan of having our attention split into many different directions and often feeling a paralysis by analysis. This is a Jupiter-ruled decan in a Mercury-ruled sign, the opposite of a Mercury decan in a Jupiter sign that we had in Sagittarius 1. So Jupiter is in its exile, just like Mercury is in its exile in the opposite decan. Jupiter will blow up possibilities. It might make it more challenging to be enthusiastic about one thing because your interests are so varied at this point at the Uranus opposition. There could be something in your life where you are getting really interested in making a big change, but now you've got a lot of options and it's a little bit more difficult to figure out who and what you are, right? I would also say this, Sergey, take a look at your progressed Venus for where that might be, or Venus in your own natal chart because of your ascendant being ruled by Venus now in Libra. And then take a look at the moon in your progressed chart to see what kind of things might be interesting to you as a career. They could change. Like when we have Cancer at the midheaven, oftentimes we go through a lot of different, like almost like lunar cycles of our careers. We will engage with one thing and then we'll move away from it, and sometimes we'll come back to it. So there is this like consistency to it, but it's consistently inconsistent, if that makes sense. So yes, nurturing careers, lots of potential changes, but in a cyclical fashion. Maybe doing more things behind the scenes. Maybe having some of your capital T truths shaken up by a lot of fractured realities and different people living different realities. I hope that that's helpful for you, Sergey. That's a good question. I hope, yeah, I don't think that the question was too complex. It just had a longish answer, right? Yeah, let me know if any of that's landing for you, Sergey, and if you have any more context that you want to share with that, or if, yeah, let us know. We can learn from your stories too. We just did like a cold reading there, but when we do like a reading with people, oftentimes the conversation it's a two-way conversation. So when we talk about the symbols that it could represent, the client will make connections with the stories that they're living in their life, and then that can help contextualize that and say, oh, maybe I'm on the right path. Maybe I need to change my perspective on this. And that communication back and forth is what is really special about getting a natal chart reading. And we can do a version of it here in the Q&A, but when we were able to talk face-to-face via reading, it actually is, we can go even deeper. Sergey says, thanks, Spencer. We'll let you know what happens. Good. I love it, Sergey. Keep us in the loop, friend. Noble Aquarius says, Pluto had me remove my mom, which lied about my father for 40 years. I learned from searching online. Pluto helped me remove people and things stopping my progress. Pluto is evolution, happy and free. I can't necessarily disagree with that statement, Noble Aquarius. I don't know if that process is always fun. I think losing a parent, revealing a lie can be very painful in that moment. I think that the Pluto process, the process of revealing a truth that's been repressed, revealing something that's been cast into darkness or cast into corruption or hidden from us, that can be really painful in the moment. So Pluto transits, they can be liberatory. Any planetary transit can be liberatory. The outer planets, I think, have somewhat of a special role in that. Pluto reveals something that could have been hidden so that we can deal with it and let go of it, which removes obstacles. Neptune can dissolve a structure that we thought was solid. Uranus can just blow it up like a tree that's just hit by lightning, and it just, explodes, right? The form just completely explodes, sort of like that tower card, right? The Tower of Babel gets like struck by lightning and then just completely disintegrated. Some good things can come from that. I'm thinking in my mind right now of the movie The Natural with Robert Redford. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember this film. It's about baseball. But this tree gets struck by lightning, and he takes some of the wood, the lightning struck wood, and he creates the bat, Wonder Boy. And that's the bat he uses to hit all these beautiful home runs, So out of that destruction comes something meaningful, comes something valuable. But I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice to say that these processes are fun or enjoyable. That would be denying some of the real pain and suffering that we experience as human beings. And I don't necessarily think that pain and suffering is always, we can't avoid it. I think that it's not always necessarily a bad thing. We as human beings try to avoid that as much as possible and avoid creating that for others. But I do think that one of the things that astrology teaches us when we start connecting the dots over a long period of time is what feels painful and what feels like suffering in the moment ultimately can lead to new rebirth, new growth, etc. So it's all part of this coherent story, this narrative. And by maintaining our center and maintaining our peace during the challenging periods, that can help us to stay intact, right, moving forward. Or it can help us to break down and let go of the things that we don't want to stay intact. So yeah, I think good share there, friend. Let's see. Rachel says, listening closely as I have Uranus and Sagittarius as well. Okay, well, hopefully we got some wisdom there as well. Kiti Lady is here. It says, Kia ora, Spencer. Do you need a computer program to create a progressed astrology chart? Well, first of all, welcome. I think this is Karen. Karen? From New Zealand. Yep, Karen. There it is, right in the there it is, right in the Karen Kitts Art Gallery and Studio. So yeah, Karen, thank you for joining us from New Zealand. Kia ora to all of you down there as well. Do you need an astrology program to create a progressed astrology chart? Not necessarily. I have Astro Gold, so this is a program that I've been using for a long period of time. I can just show you on the screen. And I've got a super chat here that I want to just acknowledge real quick. Amber Anderson Path, thank you so much for your contribution today. Appreciate you. And if you have a question, let me know. I'd be happy to answer a question for you, whether it's about your chart, about astrology in general. Thank you so much for your generosity today. So Karen, I'm going to show you my program. This is Astro Gold. And this kind of simplifies this. You can see there's this is my chart on the inside, and then the secondary progress chart on the outside. Do you necessarily need that to figure it out? No, but it can make it a little bit more accurate. When Sergey was first asking the question, I was trying to access the part of my brain that remembered how to do that technique without the computer program. And I'm having a little bit of trouble with that today. There are different types of progressed techniques. I believe solar arcs are 1 day for or 1 degree for every year of your life. You move everything 1 degree for every year of your life. I think that there are also, there's another type of progression where you're moving 4 minutes of ascension degree for every year of your life. I'm trying to remember what that technique is called. Someone in the chat help me out. That's right on the tip of my tongue. I think that the secondary progressed technique that is shown on the screen here is 1 day for every year of your life, if I am not mistaken. So yes, you can move that forward with those different progression techniques. It's really bothering me now. The 4 minute technique is something that, what is that called? That is one that I believe came from the Arabic astrologers. I have like a bunch of books on it. I'm just literally just drawing a blank with this. Somebody help me with that. I even saw a workshop on this from Nate Craddock at I think of the online version of NORWAC for the 4 minute technique. That somebody help me out with that. Primary directions. Thank you, Sergey. Thank you. Those primary directions is a progression technique that there's one version of that where you're advancing the chart, I believe 4 minutes of ascension time for every year that you are experiencing. So yes, thank you. Tertiary progressions and primary directions. Good. Let's see. Devin says, I had a big sun on my descendant moment yesterday. Can you talk about sun and Aries too? I would be happy to. I'm just looking through the chat here just to see if I missed anything. Sergey says, I believe secondary progressions are 1 day for 1 year, right? Solar arcs, I think everything that moves the same speed as the sun with that technique. Yeah, like a degree for 1 year, right? Because the sun moves like what is it, like a day? I'm probably butchering these techniques. This is a very Mercury in this is a very Mercury in Pisces teaching exercise right now. So forgive me for that. But I think we hit on most of the different techniques. It can be helpful to have your computer program. I will highly recommend, though, learning how to do the techniques without the computer program first, so that you at least have an understanding of what you're looking at. I did do that through my training, but sometimes when you have the computer program, this brings up a lot of interesting arguments that we've been making against. I don't want to open the can of worms here before I answer all these other questions, but against just outsourcing our intelligence to things like artificial intelligence or letting the program do the work for us, because you can atrophy. And I think that that's part of the things that sometimes I experience is if I haven't engaged with the theory behind the technique in a while, it will be a little bit harder to pull that up if I'm letting the program do it for me. So we have to be responsible to keeping ourselves fresh with that. Andrea Hector is here. Says, hello, my spiritual brother and family. Nice to see you, Andrea. Hope everything's going well your way, my friend. Okay, let's see. Devin, let's come back to your question here. So Devin is asking, I'm going to take this off the screen. Devin is asking, I had a big sun on my descendant moment yesterday. Can you talk about the sun in Aries too? Well, friends, right now, as we are looking at, let's kind of look at this for a minute. So let's bring the chart up again, and I'll just show you what we've got going on here. So as we are recording, the sun is at 14 degrees of Aries, which is the second 10-degree decan, they're called decans, of Aries. So we have these three sections of each sign that have different significations, right? Different parts of a three-part narrative. And when we have a middle decan, oftentimes we have a balance of the energy of that sign. In the first decan, we often experience a lack or at least a revelation of the type of experience we're going to be trying to bring into balance. In the second decan, we have kind of like the most balanced part of that decan, or sign, I should say. And then in the third, sometimes we have an excess of that. So second decan of Aries is really powerful. Second decan of Aries is, and Devin is saying in regards to the descendant. So I'll try to contextualize this for you. Devin has a Libra rising natally, and that means that his 7th house is Aries, okay? So his descendant is in the 7th house if we're doing whole sign houses. Devin also had probably a big moment because we recently had a full moon in the second decan of Libra. So the full moon was probably on his ascendant. The sun was hanging out on his descendant. Anytime we have a lunation that is activating our angles, that's what we call the ascendant, the descendant, the midheaven, and the lower midheaven. Those are our angles. We feel it really personally. So let's bring up, okay, so you can see here, sun in second decan of Aries. We just had the full moon. So we're coming to terms with that right now. So I'm going to bring to the stage, I'm just going to show you Aries 2. So here we've got, here's Devin's comment here. And Aries 2, associated with the 3 of Wands, is the decan that houses the exaltation degree of the sun. So a couple things to think about with Aries 2, Devin, and everyone. It is very solar. Right? It is a solar decan in a Mars-ruled sign. Mars is attempting to sever and separate from the collective to establish individuation, to establish a new start, to understand how to separate a part of spirit from the collective, from the whole, to be able to infuse that individual point of consciousness into a body as we move from Aries to Taurus. The opposite could be said to be true of Scorpio Mars, trying to sever that spark of consciousness, that spark of vitality from a body to return the body back to the earth and return the spirit back to the collective. That's actually a really interesting realization that's coming up with the transition with Scorpio to Sagittarius. When you think about returning spirit back to the collective, Sagittarius has sort of almost a collective mindset, right? It is trying to use that passion. It's trying to use that spirit fire, generally, oftentimes for the benefit of the whole, of the collective, of socially. Aries is using that spirit fire for the benefit, generally, of the individual. So with the second decan of Aries, we started out with the first decan, Mars-ruled sign, Mars-ruled face, severing and saying and rejecting, saying this is not me. For those of you who've been hanging out over the last 2 weeks of Aries 1 with Saturn and Neptune in Aries 1 and like the Sun in Aries 1, you have been seeing me and others in your environment, I'm sure, having strong feelings about things that they disagree with, that they don't necessarily want to be a part of. In my case, that has been the use of artificial or the abuse of artificial intelligence. I will leave some space. I will leave some space because I know that there are some applications where it could be useful. But I have a really strong negative feeling and reaction to artificial intelligence and the use of things like chatbots like ChatGPT, of generative AI models, and I have you can go back in the last 2 weeks and see all of my I wouldn't say unhinged, but my very passionate arguments about them. That's Aries 1. When we get into Aries 2, which where we're at now, that's me rejecting to individuate and say, I'm going to go my own way. I'm going to be a pioneer. I don't want to follow the collective. I don't want to just acquiesce to a technology that, in my opinion, is very destructive to both the planet and to our cognitive functioning. I just demonstrated how our cognitive functioning can decay a bit being over-reliant on technology. There was a time a few years ago where I could pop off secondary progression techniques like it was nothing. And as that starts to atrophy a little bit with dependence on just having the computer program do it for you, sometimes it's a little slower and you have to go back and review those things. That's a good reminder to go back and refresh our techniques every few years if we are using computer programs so that we don't let that completely atrophy. But now that we move to Aries 2, Aries 2 says, I've rejected this other thing, and now this is what I am. All right, this is our royal decrees. This is our ability to say, I'm not that, but here's what I am, right? And the sun shines that forth. It says, look at me in all my glory. That's what the sun every day it rises and says, I'm going to give you life, and I'm just doing that by being myself, being consistent, being, I rise and then I set like every single day, and then sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's a little lower, but generally that disc is the same shape and size every day, unless we're going through an eclipse, which is a whole different story. But the moon, for example, when it rises, has a different form, a different shape. Okay, so you can see the difference between the sun and the moon. Sometimes the sun was associated with eternity, that which was lasting, that which was, unchangeable. The moon is associated with things that change, with chance, with fortune, rather than with, I guess, the eternal divine spirit. So when the sun is moving through Aries 2 here, it's a really powerful moment for stating your sense of self, your sense of purpose, understanding what your virtues are, but also what your vices can be in regards to the 7th house. Maybe this is a partner coming to you and saying, hey, this is who I am now. Maybe there's a change in a partnership. Maybe there's someone's going through something that is difficult. Maybe they're having some struggles with how the world is, and they say, I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want to identify as this anymore. Now I need to be, here's what I am. Here's what I think I am now. That can be a challenging process. That can be a process that feels disorientating, especially for the person who this is happening to in their 7th house. So Devin, I hope everything's going well in your relationships and that your partner's doing okay. Like, it could be something where they're having an enlightening moment about their sense of self, and that could change roles within the relationship as well. This decan, it has a couple fixed stars in it. I believe Alpharet's, let me see if I can pull this up. Alpharet's, I have my decan of Aries kind of webinar slides here. Alpharet's is in the constellation Andromeda, the daughter of the king, the damsel in distress, which is related a lot to speed, freedom, but also maybe potentially working well under pressure, risk-taking behaviors. Alderamin is at 13 degrees Aries, and that's in the constellation Cepheus, which is the shoulder of the king, okay? Part of the polar royal family. There's a royal family that is around the pole star, that a lot of these fixed stars are related to. Those fixed stars, they call them like these kind of like eternal stars, because they don't necessarily rise and set each year the same way that other stars do. They just kind of appear out of thin air because they're so close to the pole, that they're not going through some of those same cyclical changes that we observe with other constellations over the course of the year. But Alderman talks about wise leadership, about sobriety, dignity, benevolent use of power. There's associations with King Solomon, a very wise figure, biblical figure. So there is themes in this decan of benevolent leadership, of saying, this is what I believe in. Here are the rules and the laws of the land. The other thing that Aries 2 has been known for, at least magically, is the ability to create your own world, I guess you could say. Sometimes when you utilize this decan magically, the rules of the outer world don't necessarily apply similarly to your own personal world. That can be challenging if, like, let's say you have Saturn in Aries 2. We're going to experience Saturn moving into Aries 2. That can speak to being stuck in a world not of your own making and being bound to it. Whereas the sun says, I'm empowered to create those rules. So we may have to figure out how to work through some of those challenges as we move forward over the course of the year. Devin says, so I hope that was helpful with the 7th house, 2nd decan, Aries sun. Devin says, my planets mostly aren't progressing anywhere. The sun, moon, Mercury, sure, but the rest of my chart won't station direct until after I'm dead. Oh boy. That's true for a lot of folks, Devin. You know, I think my partner has a lot of retrograde planets in their chart right now, progressed chart. I mean, sometimes a retrograde planet isn't, I think, the death knell that a lot of astrologers talk about, or modern astrology, pop astrology talks about. It's just one phase of a cycle. I would also offer that sometimes if you have a fallen planet that's retrograde, there are certain theories, we've talked about this a little bit on the channel, but there's certain theories that say that that planet could be acting like its opposite, like an exalted planet. So I guess it just really depends on what the planet is. Retrograde planets can delay outcomes. They can make a lot of the growth internal rather than external. Something that's given could be taken back. That's not always a bad thing. Sometimes when we take something back that is not very good, we're releasing it. So I think there's just a different way the planet is operating. Excuse me. Let's see. Sergey says, oh yes, talking about secondary progressions. Rachel has a question. Okay, hopefully I got all that. We've got Jody here too. I'm going to welcome Jody here. Hi, Spencer and friends. For information, the Netherlands is building floating data centers using canal waters for cooling instead of energy-hungry air conditioning systems. I mean, those are innovations that we need if this technology is going to be inevitable, I guess. I don't think it is inevitable necessarily, but I think that those types of solutions are a step in the right direction. I think what I have, yeah, I'll come back to that. I'm going to come back to that discussion. I'm going to answer Rachel's question first, and then I'll come back to that because I have a lot of thoughts on it. I hear what people are saying. I hear that there's a balance that needs to be struck with it. But maybe we can explore the pros and cons of that after I get to Rachel's question here. Rachel says, question, what progress technique do you most often use, Spencer, or that most resonates with you? Well, when I do a chart reading for folks, I like to look at the chart through multiple lenses. Blame it on Venus and Gemini that I have in my personal chart. Maybe it's also having a Virgo stellium. So what I will do is I will look at the secondary progressions as an overall view, like the sort of the one day for 1 year technique, I guess that you could call it. What you would consider a modern secondary progression type of thing. I will also look at the, let's see here. I will look at the solar return which is another type of kind of layer. I'll look at the solar return to see what that person might be experiencing for the year ahead. And then I'll look at any contacts that the planets are making with someone's chart, like especially outer planets and things of that nature. You want to look for phasis moments in the progress chart, as well as contacts with the natal chart as well. The angle shifting is kind of a big deal. I do remember feeling my shift from the Leo ascendant to the Virgo ascendant. It happened when I was pretty young, but it was much more of an interest in learning the process behind something. I think you could also, I really felt the transition of my sun from Cancer to Leo in secondary progressions. I think I got my first guitar when the sun progressed into Leo. And that was a really pivotal moment. I was like 14 or 15. And my sun is at 15 degrees of Cancer. So if we go by that, generally 1 degree per year for the sun in particular, in that technique, you can see a big shift happening. I think there will be a similar shift happening pretty soon for myself when the my sun progresses into Virgo. That's coming pretty soon. I think my progressed sun's at like, I don't know, 28, 29 right now. Let's see here. I'm just checking this. It's at 29 Leo. So within the next year, my sun progresses into Virgo. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm sort of feeling it too. There's just kind of something brewing. Not sure exactly, like that. Keep your eyes peeled on December of this year. December. Oh man. A little nervous about it too. December 9th, really. That's right when Saturn stations direct in the sky also. So we'll see. But there's something coming. I also like to check that primary directions technique too. That is what I've found is a really powerful technique for just recording specific events in the life. So I believe what you do with that is you're progressing the chart 4 minutes of clock time for every year of the life. So like if you're 40 years old, you do 4 minutes times 40 and you progress the chart by that amount of time. And it's really incredible to see some of the connections that you have with that. I also, when I do a chart, I look at someone's numerology as well. I pull a couple tarot cards and do an I Ching and an animal for them as well. So I like to just look at things through multiple lenses. Some of those are connected through, some of those are time-based. Some of them are intuitive-based. I believe in balancing those things out. So hopefully that was helpful. I'll be a super Virgo, Rachel says. Probably. I don't know if that's good or bad. What I do know is that a few years from now, Mercury is also going to progress into Virgo, and I will have a Mercury Cazimi in my progress chart in Virgo. So my Mercury progresses into Virgo in like August of about September of 2028. And then I have like a Mercury Cazimi. I mean, that's crazy to me. I'll have a Mercury Cazimi on in early June of 2030. And that's exactly when my ascendant switches over and my midheaven switches over. I'm curious as what happens with that, because that's a really powerful Mercury Cazimi in my second house. We'll see. There's something coming for Spencer at age 50. I don't know what that is, but we'll try to figure it out. Okay. Let's see. Devin says, my partner and I aren't together anymore. Yesterday, I separated the only contract we had binding us, our phones. I received a new phone number. Oh, Devin, I'm sorry, bud. That sounds painful. But yeah, like the severing of contracts. This last full moon was in the decan associated with contracts, Libra 2, and with the 3 of Swords kind of card, right? Where we're experiencing heartache. That's also called the Lord of Sorrow. So Libra 2 not only talks about vows and binding contracts that we have with others, but also the severing of them. So yeah, that is kind of a pivotal moment, right? The new phone number, the new identity, right? For the partner, right? So you don't necessarily have access to each other in the same way. But yeah, hang in there, friend. I know that's tough. It's probably pretty tough for Libra risings, but it's tough for anyone to go through those challenges. So send in some love and compassion your way, friend, and for your partner too. And hopefully the two of you are finding what you need. Let's see. Devin says, yeah, I pulled the Three of Swords today. This was a step of liberation for me. Good. And you know what? This is, I think, something that's happening to a lot of folks. As Saturn moves through Aries, there's a part of and Saturn and Neptune moving through Aries, and the sun is activating all of this, and soon Mars will be activating it. We're having to learn how to be more independent. And Saturn kind of says, you don't have a choice. This is going to happen whether you like it or not. We sometimes will find ourselves codependent in certain areas of our life. It can be different areas for different people. And Saturn is saying, this is not tenable anymore. You're kind of forced to make a new start, to make a severing, to be able to find out who and what you are. Like, we're going through this in our life too. My partner is going through a new job experience where she's been kind of really having to be independent with her job. She's had a lot of work experience in the past where she was really being of service to someone else that was more like higher up in the food chain and was a support person in that regard. And now she's stepping out on her own with her own business and really, finding her way through that process. There's been some things with, like, in my family where my daughter's growing up and she's trying to start her own life, and there's different things that are changing dynamics within relationships around that as well. So this is going around, friends. This is something that a lot of people, I think, are going through in different areas of their life, where we're almost like we're bound to the independent movement. It's like it's not even choice. Like, we don't even have a choice anymore. Okay, so back to Jody. What's up, Jody? Nice to see you here, friend. It's nice to connect with you again. I hope everything's going well your way. So Jody is saying, the Netherlands are building floating data centers using canal waters for cooling instead of energy-hungry air conditioning systems, which I don't know enough about it to say whether that is awesome or not, but it sounds good on the surface. I think that anytime we have technology that has a potential side effect on natural systems that have been working for thousands and thousands of years, whether it's water systems, air cooling systems, ecosystems, we have to dig deeper and see what effects that those might have long term and try to mitigate them as much as possible. But on the surface, that sounds good. Jody also says that was such an intelligent way of coexisting with AI, which is not going away, especially with Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years. Jody also says, I'm really nervous about Uranus moving into Gemini, my 6th house, activating my recent health issues. I also have a stellium in the 12th, which Uranus will oppose one by one. Very scary. Yes, some of those things could shake up your health and your life. I would say that I don't think astrology should make us more anxious. It does. If we're being real, like, everyone, I think, on some level looks at their chart and sees a difficult transit coming and is like, oh shit, that looks like it's gonna suck. I will offer, though, that sometimes when we're heading towards the car crash that we can see coming, we can tense up. This happened to my stepdad. Had this experience. He was in a car and he could see in his rearview mirror someone careening towards him, and he locked his knees up and tore his knees up, and he had to get knee replacements. And I've been in a car accident like that where I could see someone coming. Thankfully, I didn't lock my body up and we were okay. But sometimes when we see something coming, like astrologers often see difficult transits coming, we can lock up. We can get real tense and we can get real rigid. A lot of the spiritual traditions teach flexibility. They teach to be like bamboo or like wind, where we're flexible. And if we're flexible in a storm, you see all these bamboo paintings in the snow that are like leaning under the heavy snow. And I will say, in the Midwest of the United States, where we have trees that are much more brittle than bamboo, when you have heavy snow and ice, they break under that pressure, under that storm. But how do we learn to be like bamboo? How do we learn to be flexible and supple when the things like that come? That's really important when we're doing astrological work, because there are going to be things that are unavoidable that we could experience as either pain or change. And how do we remain flexible to it? Not an easy question. And not something I'm terribly good at either. As a Taurus moon, change is not is not my favorite thing. Consistency is something that I appreciate. But we may not have that in I guess, the Jupiter, Saturn, air age, you could call it, when we have Jupiter and Saturn conjoining in air. We have to be flexible and flowing. As far as your other statement about AI is not going away and we need to learn to coexist with it, I'm taking a deep breath and centering myself. I'm like taking before I launch something that could make me angry. No, I don't want to do that today. I will say, I don't think it's as inevitable as the corporate owners who have invested heavily in that technology want to make us think that it is. I think that there are a small handful of people that really like, Devin says, oh no, Spencer's going super Spencer. I've been really leaning into some of my passionate feelings lately, and some of those passionate feelings are more negative than people are used to experiencing on this channel. But that's authentically how I feel. And I am trying to be as authentic as I can. And I will say this, before I launch into any more thoughts about that technology, my passionate feelings around it are passionate, protective feelings. I feel like a steward of not only this community, but of this planet. And the anger and rage that I feel and express comes from a place of deeply caring about not only my human brothers and sisters, but of the trees, of the lakes, of the rivers, of the animals, of the ecosystems, of the creatures that don't have a voice or a choice in this matter. We as human beings have a choice whether we let this technology completely destroy our planet or our brains, but the trees don't. The waterways don't. The Gulf, the Gulf, the creatures that inhabit the Gulf of Mexico don't have a choice as to whether we're going to start drilling there, which they decided to do in the last week to open up oil reserves. That the God Squad, I don't know if any of you heard about this, but there is a section of government in the United States they call the God Squad, because the decisions that they make have the potential to completely either save a species or allow it to go extinct. And they made decisions in the past week to let basically to spell the doom of the rice whale, which there's only about 50 left in the Gulf of Mexico. And by allowing drilling, it's probably more than likely that animal will go extinct. So that rage comes from not thinking these things through holistically and rushing to make profit the goal over people, to make profit the goal over the earth and its continuing viability. That's where that rage comes from. And I think this is a really good demonstration, I think, in the difference between expressing the anger of rejection in Aries 1 that we've seen in the last 2 weeks on the channel, and moving more towards stating what I believe in versus what I'm rejecting. And I believe in the interconnectedness of this beautiful planet. I believe in speaking out for the creatures and people that don't have a voice or that don't have as much say in this. And I believe in slowing down and working at the pace that is sustainable over time. What I see with artificial intelligence right now, friends, is a race by the technocratic billionaire class to, and I see it as a very nihilistic viewpoint. I see it as a race to extract as much value and profit out of the very small remaining natural resources that we have. There's a reason why those folks are building underground bunkers in New Zealand, because they are not confident that we are going to be able to restore homeostasis and equilibrium to this earth, because that's not their value. What they value is profit. They value anything that can make them more powerful, more wealthy, have more influence. And to me, I have not seen a company yet that is using this technology responsibly. It may exist. You know, there may be people who are using it to quote unquote cure cancer, but I haven't seen that yet. I've been exposed to the examples of people that are literally trying to utilize it to become a utility that people have to pay for intelligence, where they've gone and they've scraped the entire internet, stolen thousands of years of human creativity and intelligence, and then want to make you so dependent on it that you can't think without it. I mean, look at the small example that we had today, the cognitive disconnect between a technique that I learned from a book and the ability to access it because of becoming slightly dependent on the computer program to do it for me. That's an example that could get so much worse with this technology. And as far as the inevitability of it, I'm not really sure that's the case. The ruling class wants us to believe that it's inevitable, but all of these things have been kind of fucked right into everything that we use without anybody asking for it, you know? And the more that we become dependent on that type of technology, the less freedom we have moving forward. To me, it is about freedom. I want the freedom to be able to think without being influenced by a technocrat's values. Here's one thing that I've been doing lately. I recently turned off the colors on my phone. I found grayscale like setting. And you'd be amazed at how something as simple as color can make you feel something, can make you stay longer on the phone. I've been trying to detach myself from the very real manipulative algorithms that these types of technologies and programs are putting out into the world. We literally had a landmark court ruling that said that these companies were fully aware that this technology was addictive and was created to be addictive. So I think that the more we ask questions about these things, the more that we slow down and we have to put guardrails on these before we destroy not only the planet's remaining resources, but destroy our own cognitive abilities to think critically for ourselves. I'm not willing to just offload my ability to think critically without asking a lot of questions. I don't think I'm ever willing to offload my ability to think critically. But I super want the ability to say, hey, we need to have common sense guardrails in here. We need to really understand the environmental impact before we build these things out, which they're not doing, the huge data centers. Before we let these things, quote unquote, do all our work for us. The thing that bothers me the most, I mean, as a musician, as a creative, right? As a creative, we are allowing a computer program to go through process for us. Process. Part of becoming a great artist or just enjoying art is understanding the process of making the art, of seeing yourself gain new skills, of getting your hands dirty, getting your hands messy, getting paint all over your schmuck, right? Like seeing all the beautiful messiness of it. And when we just type a sentence in and then refine that sentence over time, we're not getting any of that. We're getting none of that. We're just taking someone else's work, distilling it down into the lowest common denominator, basically, which is what those programs do, and then claiming it as our own. I mean, it's so much more of a better process to consume those artists' works, filter it through your consciousness rather than the artificial consciousness that was trained by a technocratic billionaire whose only goal is to keep you on that program for profit, to get you addicted to it so that they can start charging you more and more money. I want Prince, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder. I want those filtered through my soul and my consciousness, and I want it to come out of me in a way that is through my spirit, not through Sam Altman's spirit, not through Peter Thiel's spirit, not through Elon Musk's spirit. Those are the people that are training these things. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what makes us uniquely human. That's how we responsibly build upon culture. Is I spent decades listening to music and trying to mimic those people, and I could never do it perfectly because it was coming through my consciousness. We lose all of that when we start using these types of generative art model AIs, these generative music AI type of things. We lose all of that beauty that's filtered through our consciousness. And I'm just not rushing to do that. Maybe it's the Leo rising in me that says, no, every single individual on this planet is special. I'm really resisting the homogenization of culture. That feels gross to me. It feels disgusting, okay? Because I spent so much time working on crafting my own consciousness and my own expression. And I don't regret it. It was fun. It made me feel good about myself. I think it made other people feel good. You know, like it was shining light that only could come from my own set of experiences and skills. And everybody has unique experiences and skills, and they're different. And if you suck at one thing, it may be because you're not meant to do that. Maybe you're meant to do something completely different. You know, there's certain things that I wasn't meant to do, and that's okay. And that's learning about limitations. And I think that that's also a part of this, is learning about our limitations as well. Oh, we got some nice comments coming in here. Yeah. Jody says, we got, oh no, Spencer's going super Spencer. Devin says, I know, I'm proud of you. I'm trying to be more authentic. That is part of the Leo journey. Those of you who have Leo things in your chart, how can you, authenticity is not like performance. That's a lot of times people are like, oh, Leo just wants attention. I don't really think that's the essence of Leo. What the essence of Leo is, can you be a reflection externally of what you truly are inside? And can you marry those things? That's the goal of authenticity, not attention, not spotlight. Although you can utilize a spotlight because authenticity is attractive. When you see someone being real, being authentic, talking about how they really feel, it's liberating for other people to do the same. And that's what I think the true essence of sharing your true authentic self with others is you're saying it's okay for you to feel and be yourself as well. Devin says, has anyone read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair? I haven't read that yet. Tell me more. Devin says, we're in the era of AI. Jody says, I'm with you. Okay. Rachel says, I'm proud of you too, Spencer. No more God Squad, no more kings. Absolutely. Now, we can make a more egalitarian society without completely scrubbing what it means to be a human being. We can make a society that isn't ruled by one autocrat, like when we move into Aquarius, without just saying, well, let's just eliminate all the things that make everybody unique individuals. That's scary. Jody says, if only the rest of the world believed the same. Let's see. Rose says, sounds like an artist talking like an artist. I mean, I can only be what I am, right? Jody, if only the rest of the world believed the same. Well, that's an interesting statement, isn't it? I mean, I could also say, if the rest of the world jumped off a bridge, would you? Like, this is what our parents would teach us, right? Like, are we going to just acquiesce to peer pressure? Are we just going to accept what a profit over people system hands to us without pushing back and asking questions and speaking out about it? If more people start understanding the negative impact of using a technology, they might make a different choice. I've been watching a fascinating show on TV recently. It's on Netflix. Of course, it's a big corporate thing. I also got a new disc player the other day, so I can turn off all these streaming services and go get media at the library. I can borrow it. I don't have to own it, and I don't have to pay a billionaire eventually, like, ever increasing rates. But I've been watching A Different World, which is a really powerful show from the late 80s, early 90s. It's talking about the historically Black college experience. And they had a show, it's a really dynamic show, especially after the first season. They were talking about apartheid, and they were talking about the school divesting from company, Orange Glow, that was funding a lot of things on campus, but also supporting apartheid. And they had some really interesting debates back and forth because one of the students had gotten a scholarship for her medical degree from Orange Glow. And there was a lot of like, well, should this individual suffer because the students the college is taking a stance? Do we want to take money from this organization? And they had a lot of really good back and forth about it. And eventually the student said, I'm not taking the scholarship. Like, I don't want money from that particular organization. I would be building my life on other people's suffering. Just think about that for a second. It's so powerful. We're using this technology and building our own little mini empires, our efficiency empires. Really what we're doing is we're trying to keep up with all of these ever-increasing demands of like more productivity, more content, more eyeballs, more screen time, more advertising. Are you going to get lost? Blah, 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 all this crap. But what we don't think about is that we're building that empire, and they're building their empire on other people's suffering. They're doing that by, taking up arable farmland, by increasing the electricity load on these small rural towns, by magnitudes. One of those data centers, I know about the data centers, friends. I live in Michigan of the United States. They're trying to build a data center every 10 miles in our state. And one of those places takes up the amount of electricity it takes to power 250,000 homes in some cases. And I know already that we already have a suffering, sick planet with the energy use that we have without those things. So you're externalizing costs when you're saying, well, everyone else is doing it and I'm just going to get left behind. Maybe instead of saying, well, we can profit, we can do this more ethically, right? I've heard that argument lately too. Like, well, we have to be the ones that are training it ethically and utilizing it ethically. How about questioning the entire premise? overall. I'm a huge believer that we need to be practicing degrowth. I'm a big believer in saying that we've already pushed the limits of this planet and growth mindset. I don't necessarily believe that practicing degrowth means that we have lower qualities of life. In fact, I think that our quality of life kind of sucks right now. And I think that we will return back or innovate towards things that truly are enjoyable, things that are truly building community, that are truly sustainable over the long haul. And I understand the paradoxes that I still have to kind of live in, even doing this broadcast. I understand that there are some small hypocrisies within this. And I'm driving myself nuts trying to think about how to continue to do work and to reach people while not doing harm. I'm going through a real existential crisis. I've had this existential crisis pretty much my entire life, but it is ramped into overdrive. What you're hearing when you hear me get really frustrated and upset is like, I'm stuck in the middle of like, I don't know how to make a living anymore and stay true to my values. It is becoming harder and harder by the day. And I think a lot of us feel this way. But to me, I question the whole shebang, the whole system. I just can't just accept that, oh, I have to just get on board. I've never been that. I wasn't that when I was a musician. I wasn't that when I was a teacher. I've never been someone that says, well, this is just the way things are. You might as well get on the train and figure it out. No, I question things. I ask hard questions of the things that we assume have to be. I've done it through my astrology. I've done it through my music. That's just who I am. So I'm going to keep asking those questions. And maybe through asking the questions, we're able to have productive dialogues to find something that is more tenable for the planet. Like Jody was saying, like maybe there's ways to make it more environmentally friendly. But I have questions and I have doubts because I don't think that the motivations of the people that are implementing the technology is to save the planet. The motivation of those folks is to line their pockets. And that is something that I will always rage against. So, Devin says, The Jungle by Upton St. Clair is a 1906 novel exposing the harsh realities of immigrant life and labor in Chicago's meatpacking industry, focusing on Lithuanian immigrants. In the book, it highlights the issues of industrialization and the impacted society so that we created by worker safety measures. The book helped create awareness and is a backbone to why we have things as simple as guardrails around giant meat grinders. We are existing in this phase of AI where they are building faster than public safety and ecological damage is being regulated. Yes, exactly. We're rushing, and these companies are rushing because they want to be the one that makes all the money. They want to be the Google. Do you know what I mean? They want to be the Apple. So they're rushing without guardrails and trying to skirt over the safety measures because they want to be the singular thing that becomes the corporate name that we use as a term. Like, just Google it. Just think about that for a second. Google is a company. It is not an action. And when we make companies into verbs, that means that company has monopolized that particular area of, life. And if you don't think that these companies are racing each other to do that, and they give two shits about environmental or human guardrails, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's why we keep asking these questions. And that's why we're saying, slow the fuck down, please, please think about these things. That's why we have to keep talking about it and pushing back on it. There's things that you can do as an individual. The things that you can do as an individual right now, friends, stop using it. Just stop. You don't have to ask ChatGPT to make your meal plan for you. You don't have to give Sam Altman your creative functioning. You don't have to write a sentence in to make a song. Pick up an instrument. you know? Like, and at some point, you don't necessarily need an astrological program to learn about secondary progressions. It helps. But what happens if all of this goes away? All of the electricity goes away, all of these things. And I'm not saying that I can make a chart by hand without some computer assistance. There are limitations to some of these ideals, okay? But I do think that there's a big difference between me learning the technique, staying current with it, which has demonstrated today that I probably need to review some of those techniques to stay current with them so my brain can still do that without being completely dependent on the program. But once you know the techniques, then you can see beyond the technology. You transcend the technology. And I just don't see that with the way that there's so many things about it right now. Like, it's not just that. It's like, I've been seeing people talk about, like, teenagers, for example, people whose prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet, using chatbots for as a relationship, as a friend, or as a romantic partner. That's horrifying, because they're asking. I've shared this song in my email list and on my social media. It was called "Fuck AI" by Rustage. It's an incredible song, and he makes so many amazing points. He's a Gemini, okay? And he just makes these amazing, he's just rattling them off one after another. And, he's talking about all of the issues that we've been talking about here today on some level. And one line that he says is like, we are trying to make moral decisions with something that doesn't have a conscience. We're asking moral questions to something that doesn't have a conscience. The only conscience it has is keeping you on the platform. Do you see what I mean? That's horrifying. And as someone who's like studied the humanities for pretty much his entire life, these are dystopian like challenges we're going through. So yeah, I'm going to keep being vocal about it. Maybe there are certain applications where it is going to be useful, and maybe there will be an environmental consciousness and guardrails around it. I hope so. But there aren't going to be any guardrails if we don't push back now, right now. Do you see what I'm saying? There won't be any of those things because it'll be too far gone. Okay? So push back on these things now. Keep your ability to think now. Keep your ability not to be influenced by someone whose only motive is profit over people, over ecology. All right. Rose says, I just signed up for my only streaming channel because I can't go to the library. I subbed to PBS. I missed many of the shows terribly. PBS is great, and PBS needs help right now, Rose. PBS is under attack because it does have ethics. It does have critical thinking skills. And the current administration doesn't like it when people are being educated. PBS was responsible for Sesame Street, educating underprivileged kids, right? Teaching them how to read, how to write. And that's not the kind of thing that this current administration is into. They want all the power. They want just fealty, right? And that's not the world I want to see. Rachel says, Northern Virginia has one of the largest data center footprints in the world. At least this winter, that was true. I'm trying to get a letter campaign going among my fellow Virginians to combat it. Keep going, Rachel. I'm with you. And if there's anything that we can do to support and help you, let us know. Rose says, tell them to put in a lake and build a data center in that. Yeah, but what are you destroying to build a lake? Like, have you ever seen them put dams in rivers? It completely changes a landscape. It completely changes the creatures that don't have a choice in that. These are collateral damages, and these are collateral damages that I just am not willing to accept. Let's see. Loved by Above says, do you have God? I'm not sure how to answer that. Do I have God? I think everything is God. So I think I both have it and am it and appreciate it and see it. I think that, you know, there is a mysticism in the way that I view the world. I think God is all. And I think that, yeah, so if that's what you mean, then yeah, I see it in everything. I see it in a drop of rain. I see it in a square inch of soil. So yeah, is that under is that questioned here? Does it seem like we don't on this channel? Because I guess I'm curious to say more. Rose says, in case you missed it, other than access to YouTube, I do not use Zoogle at all. Even my phone is de-Googled. That's great. You know, I think that there's all sorts of things that we can do to detach ourselves from the machine. And the more that you can do, the better. Doesn't mean that everyone's going to do it the exact same way. But the more that you can reclaim your attention, your freedom, your ability to think for yourself, all of those things, your privacy, right? Google is notorious for, and I fully understand that Google owns this platform that we're on right now. It's crazy to me. Like, but I don't have a great answer yet. But that's why we keep putting our heads together. Jody says, this is Neptune in Aries. Illusion, right? Illusion in speeding towards the future. It's an illusion. Oftentimes when Neptune starts something, by the end of it, the glamour has faded and we wake up from the dream or from the illusion. Rose says, I love my de-gurgled, D-E-G-O-G-L-R-D, gurgled phone. Protects ton of privacy. Zoogle cannot track anything you do. Are you saying Zoogle as a thing for Google? I don't know. Yeah, I've turned off a lot of the things on that too. You'd be amazed at what turning off just the colors on your phone actually helps with, like just for your attention. I've spent like half the screen time this week that I did before. It's incredible how easy it is to get sucked into those things. But yeah, turning off all of the smart features and if you do have a Gmail account, turning off all of these types of targeted ad things where they're doing learning of your how you work. Those are worth learning about. Devin says, all right, Uranus and the Pleiades. What do you think about that when Venus and Uranus move into Gemini? Let's see. Okay. Good question. Thanks for bringing us back to astrology. It's all astrology though, right? We're talking about these things because, you know, we're about to experience Uranus moving into Gemini. The Pleiades. Well, the Pleiades are related to the Weeping Sisters, right? We've got the I did a really interesting treatment of this, not necessarily in Gemini, but actually in the Scorpio Decans webinar that I did, because we were talking about the nymphi and the nymphs, and the Pleiades are in some traditions related to these nymphs that had been pursued by Orion, and like they were mourning the loss of one of their sisters. So I do think that there's actually some grief themes associated with the Pleiades. I think that there is hubris associated with Orion. Orion was the hunter that said he could kill anything, and then Artemis basically was like, you're not going to kill my creations, and sent the big scorpion after him, right? That was where the Scorpio part comes in as well. I do think that hubris is an important element of Uranus in particular. And I think that, first of all, the resource I can direct all of you towards is Art of Stealing Fire by Liz Green. Excellent book on Uranus. And in it, she talks about the desire to be godlike, to steal an ember of immortality, an ember of divinity from the gods themselves. I think with Uranus moving into Gemini with Venus here, I think that there is a splitting of attention, right? If we look at the Gemini cards, right? If we I mean, we can, I guess I didn't bring this one up necessarily on here, but I think we could look at it. One moment. Let me find it. So here's the decan associated with this, right? We have Gemini 1, and we've talked a little bit about being bound by options. Jupiter ruled decan, right? In a Mercury ruled sign. So Mercury tends to destabilize things that were trying to be brought together in a unified whole, whereas Jupiter is trying to bring things together to achieve oftentimes a singular goal. Okay. So when we have Jupiter, a proliferation planet, symbol, etc., blowing up a sign that is interested in making things smaller, I guess, into little tiny pieces, what we end up with is a fractured consciousness, a fractured reality. We have an overwhelming amount of trivia, of distractions. So I do think that there is energy around the fracturing of attention. The ability to distract is going to get even more powerful. When sometimes we think of some people think of Sagittarius as capital T truth and Gemini as relative lowercase t truth. I would say that it will be harder to discern shared truth when Uranus and Venus and all these planets move into Gemini, because we will start living in somewhat different realities. We live in these echo chambers already, and those echo chambers are based on algorithms that are specifically designed to show you more of what you interact with. I was also seeing something online recently about rage baiting, like where the louder and more intense we are about something, the more angry we are, the more that feeds into the algorithm, and that actually just radicalizes everyone and everything. And it's we don't have to be radical about every single issue in our life. Like it's exhausting. This is why our nerves are so frayed. So I think you might see just like more of that like noise coming out of it, especially with the ability to create imagery that is a little bit hard to discern from what is real and what isn't. I just think we might be overwhelmed with options and with noise with Uranus there. I also think that communication could vastly change the way that we communicate with one another. I've often joked with my daughter since she was young when I talked about aging and how we need to have some forgiveness for our elders who are trying to make adjustments to the new thing. And I'm like, well, when I'm 80 and I'm having trouble with the teleporter, be kind and gentle with me. Like every generation goes through this on some level, but I do think that this is a little bit different. Just the scope of these changes, maybe it isn't different. Maybe people during the Industrial Revolution felt the same way and felt that their worlds were changing as intensely as ours are. But who knows? But I think just the fracturing of attention, the hubris of thinking that technology is going to save us, and the Uranian Frankenstein kind of correlation with unleashing something that we don't completely understand yet, and then having a lot of difficulty putting it back in the box after it's been unleashed on the world. And again, I'm not really a huge fan of Uranus. I think that there is a desire to be overly idealistic with Uranus. It's not grounded energy. Think about lightning. Lightning, to not be destructive, it needs a ground. It needs to be grounded with something. It needs a grounding copper wire. And if we just have this lightning just going everywhere, it can be very destructive. So that's why we have to have those guardrails and those grounding type of things. Rose says 12th house God. I mean, yeah. If we truly believe in the mystical experience of the divine, every house is God, right? Elisa Alfred says, hi, do you remember me? I just changed my profile pic. It's me, Elisa Alfred. Nice to see you, Elisa. I like your star cat there. That's very nice. And hope that you're doing well, my friend. Sprinkle77, aka Chaley, is here. Says Google is so much worse than most people will ever even realize. Yeah, they are insidious in how they track you. Various devices are listening all the time. I've tried to turn off the microphones on every single app, and like I think my TV was listening to me at one point and was targeting ads toward me, and like you'd be amazed at the way that they are intentionally trying to track you to sell you more advertising and to keep you on those platforms. It's go watch the Social Dilemma. That was a good documentary about these things, and I believe there's other ones as well that can help you understand the levels that it goes to. Nice to see you, friend. Sprinkle77 says, I have been wanting to get a de-Googled phone. I have been looking into it for a little bit because I was hacked last year. Still currently am as well, and it flipped my world upside down. Yeah, it's hard to get out of that. I have an iPhone, so I don't know if that's a de-Googled phone. I mean, I guess I still use Gmail, so I'm not completely de-Googled, and I'm here on YouTube. But my dad has like a Pixel phone, which is like made by Google, and turning off the privacy stuff is almost impossible. So there are different levels to this. I do believe Apple is a little bit better with privacy, but they're not perfect either. And we shouldn't idealize any of these big corporate entities. We have to be responsible with it and figure out how to maintain our privacy and our agency. Rose says, yes, I use Zoogle and Zuckbook instead, since they track what you type too. My friend even created what the Zuck phrase in its urban dictionary. Well, there you go. That's Zucking amazing, Rose. It's isn't it ridiculous that we have to speak in code because the algorithm is tracking us in different ways? It's just infuriating and worth pushing back on. Moa says, people, your Freudian complex can't change English pronunciation. It's Uranus. Is that what you're saying? I think it's Uranus. Uranus. Yes, Uranus. Uranus. There are many different ways to pronounce things, friend. So, I mean, those are semantics. You can pronounce it however you want. Rose says, I chose my echo chambers back in the 80s. Our power to do that existed before the internet or AI. It is exacerbated now. Rose, I actually don't think echo chambers of any type are healthy. I still follow some people that I don't agree with. I still listen to people that have different opinions than me. I think that that's healthy. So step out of your echo chamber, step into the 2020s and hear multiple perspectives on things. And you can disagree with it. Doesn't mean that you have to do or agree with what they're saying, but I do. I even still listen to some people that I vehemently disagree with. There's certain astrologers on Facebook that are completely fascist, and I have not unfollowed them because I want to see what they're saying. I want to see what that mindset and where that's coming from, and because it's very instructive as far as what people are thinking and where they're getting their information, and it helps me to diffuse a lot of that when I talk about it on my own channel. Let's see. Lisa says, I'm at a pool party, so bye. Take care, Lisa. Hope you're having a great pool party. That sounds fun. I want to be at a pool party. Rose says, be kind with us elders, please. Oh, I'm trying, Rose. We're all figuring it out, but step out of your echo chamber and hear from the multifaceted universe. Moa says, yes, it sounds like your anus, but it's not. It is correct. The correct pronunciation of the planet. Don't expose your deep complexes by manipulating language. It stands out like a sore thumb. Yeah, I guess. So like, that's just like your opinion, man. Rachel says, yes, this Taurus stellium externally struggles with Uranus too. Yeah, totally. Sprinkle says, yes, and from the same small amount that I've learned, I am positive that whoever hacked me has used several Google-related things or whatever that has aided them in their hacking. Yes. Moa says, ditch Google, use Proton Mail. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that you can use. That is one project, Moa, that I am thinking of doing this year, if I can get around to it, is using open source stuff. There's so many things that we are getting into that we're getting tied into these ever increasingly expensive subscription models and proprietary softwares and things like that. And finding alternatives to that, finding open source, finding sources that aren't big tech, it's worth doing. The problem is happening that I think is really frustrating, though, and the reason that I'm skeptical about people that are like, well, I'm not big tech, I'm doing it differently and ethically, is eventually all of the like new platforms that claim to be different sold out or were bought out by some big ass company. Like MailChimp was really functional and nice before Intuit, the people who make all that tax software that you have to use because they make taxes completely inscrutable. They bought MailChimp and completely enshittified it. So this is a problem that is at a policy level, right? Yes, we can ditch these programs and use something maybe a little bit quote unquote smaller or ethical, but you have to be really careful about what you invest in, and we have to set up a system that doesn't incentivize giant companies buying out the smaller ones that are just trying to do stuff, right? So yes, do the best that you can, but the systemic change is needed also. Sprinkle says, funny story, one of the main Google platforms, Graphite, can only be downloaded on a Google Pixel phone. Yeah, see, there's paradoxes. And this isn't a purity test for everyone, all right? I mean, it's hard to live in a society and to not use some of these things sometimes. You have to, it feels like you're swimming upstream. But I do think the effort is worth it. And I think that damage control and harm reduction is an important thing in this day and age. Sprinkle says, when Uranus transgresses into Gemini, it is going to be a definitively strong change, I believe. Yeah, we started to feel that last year. I mean, this is the last gasp before all of this stuff explodes. That's why we need to talk about it now, because you are probably going to be even more manipulated once Uranus moves into Gemini. So we have to like protect ourselves now and do in real life things. Touch some grass, put your hands in the soil, turn off your privacy, the features that are invading your privacy on your phones and all of these things. Finding new things to engage with that aren't owned by huge tech, because it's going to be much harder to do so when Uranus moves into Gemini. Sprinkle says 100. I've been greatly thankful for several interactions that I've had with people who have different viewpoints from myself. I consider these occasions to be gifts of education. 100%. And I agree with that. I grew up with a lot of different perspectives in my life. I had my parents, they split up and divorced and married multiple times. I had like 4 stepdads and 3 stepmoms, and I had to learn to adjust and to adapt to a lot of different worldviews, including ones that were very liberal, including some that were very conservative, and like try to survive within that and see these people as human beings. I have grandparents that were college professors that were conservationists and were biology and conservation professors. And I have a stepdad that was a police officer whose dad died in World War II, who's like very he has to believe the patriotic propaganda to justify his dad's sacrifice. And that makes him very human. It doesn't mean I have to agree with him. It just means that I understand how that became created, right? How his viewpoint became created. And I still can relate to some of these people. I don't have to share their views, and I don't have to encourage the negative parts of their behavior. But I do believe in having discourse with people. That doesn't mean that we open ourselves up for abuse. Doesn't mean that we allow ourselves to be abused or things of that nature. There are boundaries that we have to set with these things. But just completely living in your own echo chamber, it's really destructive, because that's not the way the world works. You could completely be missing out on something that you should be more vocal about, that people are perpetuating that believe something very different than you. Like if I didn't understand some of the things that this current administration believed in or was doing, I would not be able to diffuse it or offer a different perspective. So really important to step out of our echo chambers. Moa says nonprofit foundations by statute cannot be bought out by statute. Ditch. Why is this in all caps? Can we take the all caps off? Ditch corporate media. Use only media that is institutionally a nonprofit foundation with a mission to protect privacy rights. Okay, that is something that could be true. I haven't verified any of that, but you could be right. Sprinkle says, so true. I have my MC, North Node, and Juno in Gemini. So I'm just going to ride the wave. Yeah, Gemini talks about flexibility. So I do think that we are going to need to be flexible around this. And if we get too rigid, we'll crack under the pressure, like the tree versus the bamboo, right? Rose says, we have to learn how to not abandon ourselves. For that is midlife too. True, I agree. Sprinkle says, that is great. I love that you have been able to keep such an open mind within facing all that. I admire it greatly. Oh, thank you, friend. It's not easy to do. I get angry about things. Keeping an open mind doesn't mean that we don't get upset about things or that we don't feel sadness, rage, disgust. I feel all those things. I feel disgust in a lot of ways for the way that the world is going. That's a very Virgo tendency, is like, ew, the world is doing this? No, that's not what I want. That's not divine or whatever. But if we truly believe in that mystical mindset, maybe there is a greater plan. Maybe part of the suffering that we're seeing on the world is part of a unified whole, part of a greater narrative. Maybe we have to experience some of the contrast of suffering so that we can make the changes that we need to make. That is also a possibility. That's what duality teaches us. Like, I learned some of this through Power of Myth, Joseph Campbell, and his interviews with Bill Moyer. Really great series if you have a chance to catch it. All right. Sorry about the all caps. No worries. Sometimes we get caught up in saying things with intensity. Okay. Any other questions before we kind of start to wrap for the day? Any astrology questions? Any questions about what we've talked about today? I think we've hit on some interesting parts of the chart. We've talked about Aries today. It's second decan. We've talked about the coming Uranus moving into Gemini a little bit. We've waxed, I think, a little bit more balanced and centered about AI without maybe getting inflamed as much. I think we could still denounce the parts that are negative while keeping an open mind about it. Yeah, good chat today, friends. Sprinkle says, let's see. Oh, yes, absolutely. You are a Virgo, question mark? I am a Pisces with a Virgo moon and Virgo rising. Chaley, right? Chaley, aka Chaley. I am of Cancer sun with a Taurus moon, Leo rising, but I have Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars in Virgo with Venus in Gemini. So lots of Virgo energy flowing through me, but other parts of it as well. And that complete picture makes up your friendly neighborhood astrologer here. So, but yeah, you will definitely hear some of the Virgo stellium come out on this channel, even though I'm a Cancer sun and a Taurus moon. All right, friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I have a couple more things for you before we go. Keep in mind, we've got some challenging astrology coming up. Just a couple dates just to keep in mind, all right? I know I've talked about this on my full moon thing and on my astrology of April, so I'll do a bigger deep dive on it with all of that. But this upcoming, like April 19th through the 21st or 22nd, some really tough stuff going on, like with Mars conjoining Saturn at 7 degrees Aries. Mercury is going to conjunct Saturn and Mars around that point, with Mercury in malefic enclosure. Saturn enters its retrograde shadow at 7 degrees of Aries, and that ends the Mercury malefic enclosure. I've been talking a little bit about I don't want to go too far into this anymore because I think that not anymore, but today, because we got to wrap up for the day. But I was pointing out the 7 degrees Aries was, first of all, there was a square between that Aries stellium and the president's natal Mercury at 8 degrees of Cancer. It also is Epstein's natal moon at 7 degrees of Aries. But what I also found out this past week as I was doing some research with all the AI stuff, um, Sam Altman has a number of placements at 7 degrees Aries as well. So we've been talking about AI. We've been talking about open AI. I also think that I keep an eye on him in the news as well. Like definitely Trump and Epstein around that period of time, but Sam Altman could be playing a role in this narrative with all of these planets stacking up on a couple of his planets. I believe it's Mercury and Venus. I'm not 100% positive, but I know that he has at least 2 planets at that degree. So just keep your eyes peeled in the news for that as well. Let's see. Moa says Virgos and Pisces rule. Caps intentional. There you go. See, that's what I love. This is the thing. Caps in general is not necessarily challenging, right? But when we use caps all the time, we can't differentiate between the enthusiasm and then just a regular statement. This is true too with like when you play a guitar solo. If you play like a million notes and you play them all at the same volume, then it's hard to get that contrast. And when we do this like this, then the intentional caps have impact. So thank you for that. And they do rule. Sprinkle says, yes, Shaylee. I'm sorry, Shaylee. I'm sorry, friends. Thank you for correcting me on that. I appreciate that. Yes, was a wonderful mixture. Shaylee. Yeah, if I'm ever pronouncing anyone's name wrong or planet, in your opinion, Moa, you can feel free to correct me. With your name, I will definitely try to say it correctly because that is what people identify as, and there is a correct way for that person. There are different ways to pronounce different words in the English language, but I digress. Devin says, do you have an animal or I Ching for us today for fun? I do, friend, and I will share that for you in 1 second. I'm just going through the chat here. It says, if you're on Blue Sky, reach out. We have yeah, I'm on Blue Sky too if you all want to follow me over there. Okay, good. So let's talk about our animal and our I Ching. So here is the animal. No, the I Ching. Let's do the I Ching first. Hexagram number 60, changing to hexagram 25. This is for Aries season. What's the essence of Aries season 2026? And it's got 3 changing lines. So let's check this out. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from my favorite translation, The Laws of Change by Jack M. Balkin, who was a University of Yale professor in law. And the I Ching is a lot about the laws of the universe, the laws of social interaction. Jack Balkin also translates this as control, restriction, limitation, articulation, separate and distinguish, setting boundaries, constraint, self-control. Limitation is a necessary element of a happy life. We've been talking about guardrails today, right? This is perfect. Limiting expenditures is necessary to remain solvent. Limiting passions is necessary for maturity and sound judgment. The best limitations are those we choose for ourselves. They strengthen our character and make life easier to bear. You are facing a situation in which limitation is necessary. Perhaps you have taken on too much, or perhaps you have become self-indulgent or carried things to extremes. Whatever the problem, it is up to you to rectify matters by enforcing boundaries and reining things in a bit. Moderation is the key here. You have to strike a new balance in your life. To do that, you'll need to exercise some self-restraint. If you work at self-discipline, it will eventually come naturally to you. Adopting good habits and doing the right thing will become easy rather than a burden. The same principles apply to your finances. Keep an eye on your expenditures and avoid anything that is too extravagant. Be prudent without being stingy. That's actually really good advice here too, because as we are recording this, Venus is making a square with Pluto from the first decan of Taurus to the first decan of Aquarius. I also think that this coming like Aries stellium potentially could be an escalation in some of the violence that we're seeing globally. And if you're in America right now, you're not really feeling that pinch as much as other countries are, but you might be in the next couple of weeks. So being frugal and limiting expenditures is actually very good advice from the I Ching right now. so that you don't find yourself in an even more dire situation financially. There are 3 changing lines here. The first changing line in the second place is not going out of the gate of the courtyard, misfortune. The gate of the courtyard separates the street from the house. Not going out of the gate means failing to enter into the public world. This line is the converse of the first one. Whereas the first points out that limitation means knowing when to hold back until the time is propitious for success, this line points out that limitation also means knowing when to move forward, because the times for appropriate action are also limited. So maybe there's a part of that Aries energy where we have to take a leap in some area of our life. The point of making preparations is to be ready for action. Get yourself set to move forward when the moment is right. Keep your eyes and ears open. When the time comes, don't hesitate or have doubts. If you have taken the necessary measures, there is no cause for anxiety. You must seize the opportunity when it arrives. If you vacillate, you will miss your chance, and your bad timing will bring you misfortune. Okay. 6 at the 4th place, serene limitation, success. Serene limitation is self-restraint that has become easy because it derives from the cultivation of character. Work at developing self-discipline, and it will come naturally to you. Let moderation, balance, and restraint become a part of your everyday life. Then you will find that doing the right thing and avoiding the wrong things becomes easy. You will be able to apply your energies to the task at hand without distraction, right? Good thing, because Uranus is moving into Gemini. And this will help ensure your success. If you don't adopt good habits, then life becomes much more difficult. You will be able to exercise self-control and finish what you start only through an enormous exertion of will and effort. Realism is an important part of this equation. Look at the situation with a clear head and be willing to adopt where necessary. Accommodating yourself to present conditions does not mean giving up your principles or surrendering your ultimate goals. Rather, it means not fighting battles that will simply exhaust your resources and make it more difficult for you to succeed later on. Deal with one thing at a time and don't try to do more than the present situation permits. Take the longer view. Remember that persistent effort and preparation over time will allow you to achieve things that you could not achieve all at once. And then finally, we have the 6 at the top line. Bitter limitation. Sometimes these lines can unfold in a narrative, right? I usually read them from the bottom up, right? Maybe this is the way that things are moving in the way that the current is flowing with the change. Bitter limitation. Perseverance brings misfortune. Regrets vanish. A bitter limitation is one that is too harsh and is therefore ineffective or counterproductive. Persevering in such measures leads to misfortune. Immoderate restriction can sometimes be as bad as lack of moderation itself. If you're too hard on yourself, you will become disheartened and give up. Severe self-discipline may be necessary to get through a particularly difficult period, to make an important change in your life, or to do appropriate penance. But it will not work if it is carried on too long. Excuse me. Everything must be in an inappropriate proportion, including discipline. But if you strike the proper balance, you need have no regrets. The same principles apply when you are setting limitations for others. If you impose restrictions that are too harsh, people will resent you and they will rebel. The best limitations are those that promote self-development and self-reliance. They give people security and confidence and increase their freedom in the long run. Okay, that's good advice. So, these changing lines are talking about balance, trying to be balanced with the amount of limitation in our life, not being too severe or too harsh around it. Good advice for present company as well. And it's changing to the line 25, to the hexagram 25, which translates to innocence, but not necessarily innocence like just a young person. It also translates to without expectations, without guile, acting naturally, spontaneity, the unexpected. So this is like, how do we react naturally to something rather than with preconceived notions? So the judgment says innocence, supreme success. It is beneficial to persevere. If one is not what he should be, he meets with calamity, and it is not beneficial for him to undertake anything. Jack says, in the Book of Changes, innocence does not carry the Christian connotation of being without sin. Rather, to be innocent means to be genuine, sincere, and unaffected, without guile or deceit. For similar reasons, innocence does not mean being naive or unaware of one's surroundings. A wild animal acts naturally and instinctively, but its senses are often finely attuned to its environment. To act innocently means to act spontaneously and naturally without ulterior motives. However, human innocence means more than this. Because aggressive, selfish, and depraved behavior can also be spontaneous, innocence has a necessary moral dimension. It means doing the right thing for its own sake without thought of reward. An innocent person is naturally drawn to what is good and right, and moves in this direction instinctively and without ceremony or calculation, without manipulation or deceit. The text says that innocent behavior often offers the possibility of supreme success, whereas impulsive, unreflective behavior that lacks moral qualities will only bring unhappiness and misfortune. Innocent action is the best way to deal with the unexpected events that life inevitably hands us. You cannot always prepare for every contingency, and you cannot run your life according to a script, no matter how intricate or well thought out. You must be willing to improvise and respond naturally to the situation. Okay, and that's good advice for the astrology that's coming up, I think, in the future. There's probably some intense things that are coming up that, you know, with Uranus is about to conjoin Mars in, I think, on my birthday, July 7th. Or no, July 4th, but it's baked into my natal chart, I think. Yeah, Mars and Uranus come together on the 4th of July. Oh boy. So there probably are some things coming that we can't necessarily completely understand the ramifications of. But if we, like I said, if we tense up, if when we see the car crash coming, we stand to have more damage done to us. If we respond just to the problems as they happen, yes, you can prepare. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be unprepared, but you be prepared and then you leave some space and flexibility. Often when I see really difficult transits, I try to prepare myself by practicing extra self-care. I try to prepare myself by maybe leaving some extra room in my schedule. That allows for innocent reaction to what is happening. Okay. There is another animal that I have for you. Okay. Let's see. Just checking in with the chat first before we move on to the animal. Let's see. Stellar Rendition is here. So thanks, Spencer. Enjoyed the convo today. I've been listening at 2 times the speed to catch up and just got to the present time. Oh, nice. I do that with some things sometimes too. I talk a little bit slow, so hopefully you're still able to understand me. So appreciate you being here today. Shaylee says, I agree 100%. How long will the Pluto-Venus square be activated? And what is the date of the Aries stellium that we'll see? Sorry if you've already spoken on this. Spoke of this. I was arrived late. So the Venus square is activated today. We had a build up to it, and it perfects this evening, Friday. What's the date today? The 3rd of April. And then you'll see the results of this for the next, I don't know, maybe through the weekend. But Venus is in the decan of Taurus that is related to worry about money, okay, but also about preparing for the future. Pluto is in the decan of Aquarius that's related to conflict and defeat, of like going off into exile, of leaving behind the center of society because you don't agree with it. So the square, a lot of the issues we've been talking about today reflect the Venus-Pluto square of like, man, there's a lot of worry about how we're going to support ourselves if we don't agree with what's going on in society. We don't agree with the what is being asked of us in the future community and things of that nature. The Aries stellium is going to be around the 18th through the 22nd or so, where like I think 7 planets. It kicks off with the new moon in Aries 3, which I believe is around the 17th or so. Yeah, the new moon is on April 17th. So really the 17th through about the 22nd or 23rd are going to be really, really like Aries, like big kind of a moment for that. And Mercury will be on in malefic enclosure on the 20th, which probably is going to be something that is a little bit sticky for communications. We're probably going to be getting messages that are really explosive around that period of time. And it's really activating some of the major power brokers in the world right now with Trump's chart, Epstein's chart, and Sam Altman's chart. So keep an eye on those three figures in particular for that Aries stellium. Yes, oh Lord, oh my Lordy, of course, on July the 4th. Yeah, like not super surprising with that, but yeah, we'll take it as it comes. We'll figure it out when we get there, right? We'll try to do as much harm reduction as we can until then, and try to keep our eyes peeled for the people that need our protection, and just try to tell people that you love them. You know what I mean? Like try to spread some good in the world too, rather than bracing too much for what could be some challenging times for sure. And thank you so much for the super chat today, Shaylee. 77. I love it. My birthday is 77, so I love that number, 777. My birthday is in 1980, but July 7th, 1980. So thank you so much, friend, for being here today, and thank you for your contributions in the chat, your ideas, and for your super chat today. Devin says, got rid of a bunch of subscriptions today. Perfect for that limitations. I love it. I've been unsubscribing from a bunch of email lists. I was getting emails where I don't know about you, but people are really abusing email lists lately. Just flooding the zone with noise. And now I get like 7 or 8 emails a day rather than like 50 to 60. And I just couldn't keep up with it. And I was getting 800 emails in a week. And I just like, nah, can't do that anymore. So if I unsubscribe from anybody's list, it wasn't personal. It was just trying to quiet down some of the noise. Shaylee says, I'm not a fan of Venus-Pluto square. I have double whammy of it with a guy I met in December. It's definitely not an aspect for the week. No, it is not, friend. It can reveal some corruption underneath the surface, especially in relationships, and power dynamics in relationships is a Venus-Pluto dynamic as well. So revealing something about somebody in a relationship that you weren't aware of is part of it, and that can be painful. Okay, it's just cray intense. Thanks for explaining it. Helps so much. Appreciate you, friend. And thank you so much for the super chat today. Okay, so one more thing before we wrap up for the day. Here's our animal. It's the dog. I don't think we've gotten the dog on this channel before. Here is a beautiful golden retriever. I feel like this is my dog spirit animal on some level. I feel like I have some golden retriever energy. I was obsessed with golden retrievers and huskies as a child. My mom had a Chihuahua, which really fit for her. And so yes, the dog. Let's talk about the dog a little bit. Loyalty, protection. I'm going to read to you from Animal Frequency by Melissa Alvarez. She says, dog symbolizes loyalty, protection, and service. Dog will give its life for its owner without a moment's hesitation. You too are fiercely loyal and protective of those that you love. You'll stick by them through the thick and thin, regardless of what they've done or the situations they find themselves in. Dog helps those in need by being a guide or a service animal. You're usually the first person to jump in and help in a community emergency situation, or if a friend, a coworker, or a family member is in need. Just as dog loves to run and play, you are able to lift the spirits of those around you with your sunny disposition and engaging smile. This animal has talents for assistance, communication, cooperation, faithfulness, fidelity, friendship, guardian, happiness, intelligence, keen observation, loyalty, obedience, perception, protection, reliability, resourcefulness, service, trustworthiness, unconditional acceptance, that's an important one, and unconditional love. It has challenges of dependency on others, lacking of discrimination, and sometimes laziness. When dog appears, the first thing to do is consider the breed of dog and its unique characteristics of that breed. If it's a Chihuahua, it means that your bark is louder than your bite. If it's a German Shepherd, you may need to be extra vigilant about protection. Dog means you have to remain faithful to yourself and to what you want to accomplish in life, regardless of the distractions around you. When dog appears, it is a sign that you should remain strong in your intention and have faith in that everything will work out as it should. If you've been too hard or critical of yourself and others or are in attack mode, dog can help you to see the positive over the negative and help you find your way back to your true loving and noble nature. Dog loves companionship and being with its people. It sees the good in everything and encourages you to do the same. Dog warns that you should always sniff out the people around you and the situations you're in to find the truth. If something smells off, even if you can't figure out what it is, listen to dog and pay attention to discover what is hidden. Dog can assist you when you're feeling lost and don't know what direction to go in. Dog can guide you back onto your path. If you're feeling lonely, dog can help you find more companionship. Feeling wary, fearful, or intimidated? Dog gives you the sense of protection and the strength to handle the situation. Dog means to make sure you aren't cowering in fear or aggressively attacking just because someone else says that you should do so. Dogs who act so out of character for the species have been abused or trained that way and are only seeking the approval and love of their owners. Remember to follow your own personal truths and values without letting others negatively influence you. Dog also helps you see when you've taken someone else's loyalty for granted and will open your eyes to who your true friends are when the times get tough. All right. I love that. Unconditional love, seeking out protection, finding your path, being guided back towards your kind and gentle nature. I mean, there's so many things that are trying to radicalize us towards anger and rage and things like that. How do we get back in touch with our kindness? How do we get back in touch with our loving, unconditional selves? That's a good reflection, I think, for Aries season, right? Especially when there's so many things that we could be angry about. We can call truth to power, but how do we return back to that energy of kindness? How do we return back to that energy of building the world and the community that we want to see rather than the one that was just being shoved down our throat, right? And I think that's just as important as calling out the things that we don't want. We have to call in the things that we do want and be loyal to those things and those people. All right, friends, that's what I've got. I'm going to check in one more time with the chat. Sprinkle Shaylee says, you know what's great about your birthday? 1 + 8 + 9, 18, which is technically, we could then subtract the 1 from the 8 and get another 7. Oh, there you go. There you go. Doing a little numerology here today. Rachel Fletcher says, those are my 2 favorite types of dogs growing up too. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yep. I was really enamored with golden retrievers, and I just had some kind of weird fascination with huskies and Samoyeds, like the white kind of like husky-ish type of dog. I'm a little afraid of huskies these days. Their eyes are so penetrating. It's just like, oh, they're seeing through your soul. But yeah, I'm a little bit more of a cat person these days. I love cats. I don't have any issues with dogs, but I love all of the Earth's creatures, but I love my little kitty friends. This is a lovely energy for us right now. I agree. Katie Loves Pink is here, says, looking forward to listening to the entire stream throughout the week on Apple Podcasts. These streams get me through my week, so thank you. Oh, Katie, thank you for saying that. That fills my heart up. I love being here for all of you, and I hope that it's contributing to your sense of centeredness and peacefulness, and also just edifying, educating. So yeah, thank you for that comment. Appreciate you, and I hope that you have a great week moving forward. Shaylee says, that was beautiful. Thank you, Shaylee. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your support. Appreciate you. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you. You can check me out at Spencer Michaud on social media. You can find me over at spencermichaud.com. You can find my beautiful partner at Third Coast Mojo. Please go support her over there on Etsy. Subscribe to the newsletter, and just have a great Aries season, friends. Aries season can be really intense. There can be a lot of feelings that come up. Aries doesn't mean we have to be angry or have to engage in conflicts. You can be just passionately yourself. And if you're passionately kind on the inside, express that, right? Express your kindness passionately. Express your values passionately. Call in what you want to see in the world. That can be really attractive. Like we talked about at the very beginning of the show, Aries can be some of the sexiest energy in the zodiac. And some of that sexiness comes from just being truly authentic and true to yourself, and just saying, hey, here's who and what I am. Let's not play any games. Let's be direct. That can be very attractive. So kind to yourself, be kind to others. And we'll get through this. We'll get through it. A lot of things going on in the collective, but one day at a time. And then let's follow that I Ching advice and just meet it without guile, without pre-planning, without saying what it has to be or what it doesn't have to be, what we have to do or don't have to do. Let's react through our spirit in real time. And I think we'll get through it intact. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you. Have a great afternoon. Have a great week. and I will see you the next time. Peace, friends.